Hello and welcome to our workshop live from the Bellagio, from scrappy to scalable, growing your support org from Series A to Series C. So in this workshop, we'll be learning about scaling customer support operations without the burnout or the duct tape. And I'm Maya, founding engineer at 14 AI.
Hi, I'm Marie, co-founder at 14 AI. And here,
Jen Burton, founder of Upper Writers, a customer support operations consultancy.
Thank you so much for being here, Jen. We're really excited to have you.
how does it feel to be in Vegas?
Live from the Bellagio, it's 14.ai.
And you gave an amazing talk this morning
Thank
at the
you.
Support-Driven Conference.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
So before we move on, share in the chat where you're calling from and your favorite sport.
What's your favorite sport?
Well,
Jen?
I grew up playing soccer, so I can't, I've got to go with that, though I'm a huge fan of the Golden State Valkyries WNBA team.
Amazing.
Yep.
Oh. And you, Maya?
I'm gonna say tennis.
Tennis. Great. My favorite sport is Barry's Boot Camp.
Oh, yeah, you talk about it.
We do a lot of weights, running with the team, and yeah, it's hard and fun at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, before we get started, let's share a little bit about today's agenda. So first, we're going to meet Jen, learn more about her and her work at Upper Writers, and then we're going to dive into our live Q&A session. So we're going to do, a lot of, we're going to learn a lot about Jen's experience working with support orgs from Series A to Series C, and anything else she has to share. So yeah, so first I'd like to introduce Jen. So she's the founder of Upper Writers, support executive with strategic mind behind multiple early stage customer support success stories, and of course a team scaling expert specializing in creating high performing support teams.
Thanks,
So
Maya, so much. I
hand it off to
appreciate
you.
it. Happy to be here. Just have to shout out that 14.ai and the team are one of my favorite startups that I've met over the years. So one of the things that I was asked is, what does Upper Writers, where did that come from? And I think about it in terms of those four squares we look at, right? And so in the upper right of that four square, for example, it might be the most efficient and the most impactful. So we want to move up and to the right. And it started out kind of as a joke that I want to have upper writer friends in my life. And so when I went out on my own, I thought Upper Writers is the name to go for.
I love it, and I love the logo as well.
Great.
Oh, I have to shout out, logo was designed by Stephanie Player.
Oh, hi Stephanie, if you hear us.
So yeah, I can do.
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah. I can do so. Now we can transition to the Q&A session. Yeah. So scaling support the right way. So throughout this Q&A session, we're going to talk about hiring strategy, key metrics, common pitfalls, and scaling support teams, and many more things. And as always, feel free to drop your questions in the chat throughout the session.
Right on. So scaling, I get asked a lot, and I've worked with Series A companies. At what point is it time to build your customer support team? And early stage, seed stage, early Series A is not the time. We need our founders, we need our engineers in there, getting to know the customers, understanding their struggles and understanding where the opportunities are. And it's quite often a really fast way to address gaps, right? If you can email an engineer and that afternoon your issue is fixed, right? And that's that important. So for example, I'm in the first 60 users of a growth engine software called Gia, and I'm directly connected to the founders. They ask me, what do you think? Here's a new release. So Series A, you all got to be in there. And as you sort of move later in the Series A stage, maybe you found your product market fit and you're about to raise and you're getting an influx of customer questions. That's the time that I would start hiring, and I would actually hire a mid-level, mid-experienced customer support agent or leader, someone who has an operational understanding, who can really start getting those foundations set up for you. I talk to founders all the time who have no idea what's going on with their product because they're no longer getting the customer emails into their inbox and they're not tracking data. And customer support organizations need to be insight engines, not just this reactive fly swatting customer inquiries. So we have to take advantage of the data we have. So that's when you start hiring late Series A, Series B. Make sure your foundations are solid.
Great. And I'm very curious, Jen, how you started your own company and yeah, what's the story that no one knows?
The story that no one knows. So I started Upper Writers. I had always wanted to go out on my own, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. I was um, worried about regular paychecks. I thought that other people were better at this and just had to go through this real mindset shift. And in November of 2023, I got laid off, like so many of us. And the beauty of that layoff was that I had landed at that company through an acquisition, and I didn't like it. They wouldn't have chosen me and I wouldn't have chosen them. So it was this opportunity to say, where do I want to go? And I did continue to look for full-time jobs while I picked up some freelance work, and then got to a point where the right opportunity came and I jumped on it. I stepped out of the interview process for a full-time job, took this fractional client, and now has become a great friend and has referred me to other clients. So the time really was right for me to go out on my own. And now I love it. I love it. I get to set my schedule. I get to choose who I work with. For example, I don't take client meetings before 10 a.m. because that's my best focus time. So I'm not set to anyone else's schedule.
And how did you learn having confidence?
Mm. Well, it takes a lot of trial and error. One of the things I did, though, as I was getting this business started, is I asked my former coworkers and people that used to report to me and my friends. One of the questions I asked of some former direct reports was, what was it about my leadership style that had the biggest impact on you? And then I learned a lot. Someone said, you made it okay for me to fail. And in startups, we have to fail. It's so important. And, another friend of mine who'd been on her own and consulting for so long, just one time she said, why are you giving free advice to these startups? She's like, you can save them $10,000. You have so much experience. You need to charge them. And I was like, okay. And now I'll get, a startup might reach out and I'll say, well, this is my rate. And they're like, okay, bye. And that's okay too.
Making money.
That's right. You got to monetize.
So now our next question is about when to make the next support hire. So, when you're building a support team from scratch, what kind of signals tell you it's time to make the first or next hire?
So we talked about when to bring in that first hire. And the next hire is also very important because we think about as products grow in complexity, and if you have really hired a strong growth-oriented leader, and the first hire doesn't need to be me. It shouldn't be me. You need someone who can grow with you as well. So the next hire to bring in is going to be more of a traditional support agent. But in this stage, no one has just one job at a startup, right? So you need to have that support agent also be involved in saying, hey, this is working, this is not working. And everyone works really closely together. And so that's the other key thing about support hire. I hate this whole concept of hiring for culture because it does end up being full of bias, but you can hire for personality. And that's what I would really look for in the next support hire in any hiring stage at these small startups.
Great. And how do you balance hiring generalists versus specialists
Yes.
as it grows from Series A to Series C?
Yeah. So you need to be generalist Series A for sure. Heading into Series C, you've hit product market fit. You're on a growth path, which generally means your product is continuing to grow. And you may be, if you're in a fintech, you might be having people who have billing questions. You might be having people who have technical questions. And so it's really important to shift into specialization, and at least by the Series C level, because it does several things. One, it improves support because the experts are doing what they're experts at, but also it makes onboarding much faster. So, for example, if you're just continuing to hire generalists, you have to make sure everyone is trained from A to Z, right? And that takes time. And so When we move into more of a specialist or skills-based model, you can get those folks having impact much quicker. At a previous company, uh, time to impact was about 12 weeks. And so when we got out of specialization, I mean, out of generalists into specialists, we had folks in the queue in less than 2 weeks having impact. And then it becomes part of a growth and career growth opportunity.
Awesome. So next question is about early stage support metrics that matter. So what are the most important metrics for an early stage startup team to track, and which ones can be ignored at this stage?
The very most important metric startups need to track, and they're not, is contact reason, topics, product, right? It becomes people talk about, well, we need to have our first response time here and we need to have our full resolution time there. And it's like, wait a minute, you might be killing those metrics, but you have no idea what's going on. And so it's so important to start at this point where it's like, this is what's going on, because then you can build your support organization around it. Then you can go back to product and say, hey, this release has resulted in an increase of topics, or it's taking us this long to solve these questions. And then the business has the insight there to help make improvements. From there, we go into kind of a table stakes, right? There's the standard, like I mentioned, first, time to first reply for email, time to first reply for chat, which should be in the seconds. And then you've got the standard on the phones, like waiting time. Phones, you have handle time. Same with chat and email. Those are important, but they're not they can't, if they're your number one, you're looking in the wrong place. Customer satisfaction, is a very standard and traditional metric. That can be a challenge though, because folks might be rating the product or the policy, not the support they received. And so when I'm starting to look a little bit deeper, I want to get in there and understand and see opportunities for coaching for agents. Where are things not going well? And is that a team-wide issue or is it an individual issue? So I might look at response, how many responses it takes to solve an issue. I might look at CSAT as a signal. And that's where we're going to start driving the business forward, because well-trained team with the agency to make decisions. So we're not flipping through a script here. The quality of the support and the customer experience really skyrockets. So yes, everyone needs to be answering tickets quickly. We need quality. But as a leader, I need to be in there and understanding what's really going on behind those metrics.
Next question. How do you prioritize which support channels, like email, chat, phone, self-serve, to open first at an early stage startup?
That's going to depend a lot on your product. If you're app-based, if people are using the app, it makes great sense to go into chat. I used to work for a company that served hairstylists and beauty professionals. Those folks are on their phones. They don't have time to send an email and come back after their next appointment and hope there's a response. And so we used SMS and it worked really, really well. And phone, it also, who's your demographic? How much self-serve can you add to your phone and chat, right? There are demographics that if you ask them to pick up the phone, it's like it weighs a ton. And there are demographics who do not ever want to go digital, right? So you need to understand who you're serving. I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm tired of omni-channel. It's exhausting. And it puts the onus on the customer to find us, right? So imagine you are walking to your gate, you have a flight, and you get the push message or the text, your flight's been canceled. You stop and stand there and say, do I go to an agent? Do I text? Do I call? Do I chat? Like, what do I do? I'm panicking. But if instead of omni-channel, it was omnipresence, and they said, hey, Jen, your flight's canceled, but here's 3 other options. Hit 1, 2, or 3 to pick your next flight. Boom, right? That's handled. That's customer service. That doesn't require human intervention and is done in seconds and eases my anxiety and fear. So we're stuck in a channel model right now. We're going to be for a while, but I would love to see businesses start to move forward. For example, my bank, if I have a suspicious swipe on my card, it declines and I get a text. Is this you? That's the start of omnipresence.
Are there other industries that you would love to see is omnipresent?
I think we can look at them across just about any industry, right? Financial services. So, um, my bank knows my income patterns, it knows my spending patterns, and we did some of this at Digit as a separate financial services app. But imagine in my bank, they do now. They're like, oh, overdraft. We pulled money from savings, and now you're not overdrafted. The charge went through. But what if instead it said, hey, Jen, your car payment's due in 5 days, you're spending like crazy, and there's a real good chance your car payment's going to get declined. So here are your options: move money from savings. This would be hard to communicate, or stop spending like a crazy person. But it gives me the choice at that point. I don't have to stress out about whether my car payment's going to decline. I have agency in that moment that the bank has given me, and I get to just move forward. I don't have to sweat it.
Love it.
So our next question is about process improvement versus headcount. So what's your framework for deciding when to invest in process improvements versus hiring more headcount?
I love process. I really do. And I hope that doesn't make me sound like really uptight. I'm
Is
pretty,
the book very clean?
it is not actually at all. I am one of those people who knows where everything is in the chaos, but it's completely opposite at work, right? You can't scale chaos. Um, so thanks for asking me that. So when to focus on process and procedure versus hiring? There's no reason or need for businesses anymore to hire in line with product growth, right? Just because the company's growing doesn't mean we need to go out and hire and have this kind of one-to-one growth. There's too much amazing technology out there now. And so when I think about process, what can we automate? We all know about AI. What can we automate? If there are decisions that need to be made in a customer support inquiry that require no research or actual analysis, but there's guardrails for it, right? It's in the database, and if this then that needs to be automated. And that leaves the genius and the energy and the ability to understand nuance and soothe anxiety to the team who are handling those more escalated issues. So I would start looking for opportunities. I don't think any company should be automating at Series A. I think you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity. You need that human touch. But as a team grows, should be looking for tools that help you automate, whether it's an AI tool or a great customer support tool that helps with routing and groups and that sort of thing.
Great. We have a few questions from the audience. But first, a statement from Tyler Rachal. Jen Burton is awesome. Not really a question, just a statement.
You make me blush, Tyler.
And then we have a question about, do you choose to work with Series A to C startups mainly because of fit, or is there some personal reasons you enjoy working with early stage startups?
Yeah. I love early stage startups. I love the risk taking. I love the daily pivots sometimes. My skill set, though, is where I'm moving in my business is more towards growth stage businesses. I just, I've been in the startup industry. I started as a customer service agent on the phones at Amazon when they only sold books, and we were in one building in Seattle. So that tells you how long I've been around. I have never worked by choice for a company more than 300 people. I have landed in those larger companies through exits and acquisitions. But my sweet spot is these, B and C companies. And I recently had an opportunity to work with a Series A, and I just had so much fun. I did small team. We're just right next to each other, and something went up or didn't go right. We adjusted. It was great.
So now we have a question about common support setup mistakes at Series A through C. So what are the most common mistakes you see at Series A to C startups that they make when setting up their first support systems?
I sort of touched on this, and I think it's focusing on the wrong data. If you imagine, so I had a client who when I joined, product and the founders were handling all the customer support. They had moved over to Zendesk. And at that time, the founders and engineers were in Zendesk and no one was tracking the data. Um, so we got that going, and I had a couple of agents at that time, and we were able to gently pull the founders out of the inbox as we helped them understand our skills and what we could do. And part of that was sharing data. Then they trusted that they would know what's going on. So it is this topic based data. And then other mistake. Well, another example of this is that same company had a go to market function, and they were doing all this incredible GTM work, and the go to market team was receiving responses from leads and clients into their inboxes. And so I was like, y'all, you have no idea what's going on. We pulled them into Zendesk, and within a week, we made a product change based on the themes we saw. So it is so vitally important to really track and tell the story of what your customers are experiencing. I wouldn't worry about handle times and KPIs at Series A. That's not really important. So really, I think the mistakes that are made are focusing on these old school efficiency-based metrics rather than gleaning insight and information, which is the most valuable thing you can get. That is what shifts a customer support org from a cost center into a profit driver.
Great. Next question. From your experience, what are the most effective ways for early support teams to collect and share feedback with the rest of the organization?
I love this. Early stages, you're on the phone, right? Marie knows this. You're in Slack. These customers have access to your team in Slack. That's early. As you start to hit product market fit and are starting to scale, um, data, right? I need to know what product people are emailing about. I need to know when they're emailing or contacting us about it, because maybe we had a release and contact spiked. I need to know their sentiment. I need to understand their level of frustration. And then you can get more granular, right? If you start at the top, that this is about, our savings tool, and then what are we talking about in there? Are we talking about account issues? Are we talking about, is there a bug on the app? So we need to understand that. Um, and then as the team grows, you are going to have to start looking at performance metrics. It's just a fact of life. Again, if you're not holding folks accountable to performance, then it becomes chaos, right? And you can't scale chaos. And I, fortunately, because my experience is in with much smaller companies, we get to have a little more loosey goosey. We get to have a little more vibes, a little more personality, right? We're not talking about the massive cable company scripts here. I don't want to work in that environment. I wouldn't ask anyone else to. And that's one of the beauties of my career in startups.
One more question. Evolution of support scaling approaches. So how has your approach to scaling support changed as you've experienced different growth stages?
For sure. And that's one of the things I mentioned about tooling. There's so much more effective and cool and exciting tools out there. So instead of the old school way of saying, okay, we're getting 100 emails a day and each email takes 7 minutes to solve, how many people am I going to need to schedule? There's the old Erlang calendar, a calculator for anyone who's been in contact centers, right? And that's the old way we did it, right? And we did it manually with spreadsheets. We scheduled with spreadsheets. Hey, we know 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific is our most, our busiest time. So we have to have more people in there. And we would do all these manual calculations. So now with tools, I don't have to do that anymore. I have workforce management tool that plugs into my software and says, these are the trends, these are the times. You need people of this skill set and that skill set at these times. So then I can look at a forecast, right, and say, wow, we're forecasted right on time. Where I walk into clients and I'm like, wait a minute, you're way overstaffed. And that tool tells me all of those things I need to know. And then the next level is, where can I start with operational AI. Where can I bring in AI and tools to make the agent and leadership's team life easier? Can we start shaving off time? If a CS agent doesn't have to go to 2 different knowledge bases to solve an issue, and instead we have AI saying, hey, we think it's this one, boom, we're looking at seconds, right? Same with managers. Managers don't have to do manual QA anymore, right? We're using AI to do quality assurance, and that's saving us time. We're using AI to track trends and themes and get that back. So with all of these supportive tools, and I'm not even going to talk about front end AI. I'm not. We're tired. I'm tired of it, honestly. I'm tired of the topic. But back end AI really saves so much operational time for every level of the organization.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was amazing. And if anybody has any more questions, feel free to add them in the chat, and we'll get to them. Oh, looks like
So, right. Another question: what common pitfalls should startups avoid when building their customer support from scratch?
Going too experienced or not experienced enough. You need someone who is going to roll their sleeves up and get in there and answer these questions, and be able, but experienced enough to know what to tell the rest of the business, experienced enough to start setting up processes, right? And so as you scale, you'll want to bring in more experienced leaders. Folks bring me in at late B, C plus stages, so I can kind of take what's going and build foundations around it. But don't start too small or too fast. Marie's shaking her head. She knows this. She's a multiple founder, right? She knows the importance of getting folks in at the right stage in their careers for the stage of the business.
thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen. So looking ahead, so today's workshop, we talked, with Jen about her experience scaling support orgs from Series A to Series C, covering hiring, processes, and strategies for building high impact teams. And next week, we have a workshop titled Prompt Like a Pro, prompting for AI customer support. And we're going to be, diving into prompting and sharing practical strategies for designing AI agents that can help you deliver consistent, accurate, and helpful customer support. So if you found today helpful, make sure to sign up for that. We're going to have that link for you. And once again, thank you so much, Jen. If you have any questions, you can email us. We have the emails right here. And then, Jen at jenburton.me, and we have team at 14AI. Always feel free to reach out. We're always happy to answer questions. Also, stay tuned for a recap. We're going to share a blog post summarizing Jen's wonderful insights. So we're going to have that on our blog soon. We're going to post that soon. So stay tuned for that. And thank you so much again. Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you so much to our audience for the wonderful questions. And we hope to see you next week.
Right on. Thanks for coming, everyone. And thanks for the invite.
See you next time from the hot tub.
Live from the